In this video, I'm going to teach you how to read your human design chart. We're going to take a look at the different symbols, the shapes, the lines, the colors, the numbers, all that stuff that you see on a human design chart. And I'm going to walk you through and show you what each piece of it is and where it comes from and how it fits together. And then I'm also going to, at the end, I'm going to offer you an exercise that you can do that I think will really help you step out of any confusion or overwhelm that you have about learning your human design and will help you get focused in a way that's really going to support you. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. My experience is that when somebody first gets one of these, you might see it on your phone, maybe somebody sent it to you, maybe you got it online somewhere. If you don't have your chart yet, you can go to yourfreehumandesignchart.com, yourfreehumandesignchart.com, and get your chart there. I don't know what's true for you. I would love to hear from you down in the comments about what your experience was in the first time you saw your chart or the first time you saw a human design chart. Because for some people, it's like super compelling and super fascinating. They go, wow, I have no idea what all that stuff means, but it's really cool and I want to find out. So maybe you're one of those people. I was certainly like that. So the image that we are most familiar with human design is what we call the body graph. And so it can look different depending on what kind of software you're using. And when you look at it, some of the first things you see are those shapes, right? There's all these different shapes. And then there's lines connecting the different shapes together. And then there's numbers on all the different parts. And there's different colors. So what does all that stuff mean? So let's get some context here. Now you can see in this image that it has nothing colored in, right? This is what we call a blank body graph chart. It's something that I work with a lot in my programs because we get to do some really fun stuff with the body graph chart. But the reason I'm showing it to you here is I want you to know that you have that entire human design system in your own energy field, okay? You have all of it. Sometimes people will look at their chart and they'll be like, oh, I don't have that part, or I don't have that part. I want you to know you have all of it in your own human design system. What's different is what's colored in and what's white. So we're going to come back to that in just a second because it's a really key, important part for you to understand is the colored parts are what we call definition and the white parts are what we call open. But you have all of them and you have access to all of them. But before we dive into that specifics, let's take a look at the parts of the chart just so that you can satisfy your curiosity here. Okay. So the different geometrical shapes, right, are called the centers, the energy centers, the human design energy centers. Then connecting the different shapes together is what we call a channel. There are different lines. So there's one here. There's one here. There are a couple over here that you can see in this image, right? So those are called the channels. So it's the centers, right? The centers and the channels are what connect them together. And then inside of each of the centers, you'll notice there are numbers. And those numbers are the gates, the numbers of the gates. So those are the main parts of this body graph that you're looking at. So let's dive into this question about defined and open a little bit more. So in this image, you can see the different parts that are colored in, right, are what we call defined. And then there are the parts that are white that we call open. So the parts that are defined are the parts of your chart that you're going to be most aware of, or maybe they just are part of who you are and you may or may not think about them very much. The reason that they're important is that you have consistent relationship to those energies. And so there's something that you have had with you. And a lot of times people say, this is who you are. Well, I want to say it's part of who you are because the white part is who you are too. But the thing about definition is definition, like I said, it's consistent and it kind of transmits. It goes dee 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 dee, like a radio station does, right? Or a TV station does. It's sending out a signal. Let's talk here about the throat center, right? So if you have this colored in your chart, it means that you have access to this ability to really express yourself relatively easily. And depending on the different parts of your chart, it'll give you clues about what it is that you're here to talk about. And so that's what happens when it's colored in. And how you experience that energy of your throat is something that you are transmitting out into the world that other people can then feel, a lot of times intuitively, or psychically or energetically, but they don't necessarily have words for it. They don't necessarily really understand how to understand it, right? They can just kind of feel it. Think about this for yourself, right? When you come around certain people, you might feel a certain way. It's like, oh, yeah, I can sort of feel good in this way because I'm around this person, because they're transmitting out this energy. And if they have a really uplifted and a high frequency way of expressing that energy, it feels good to us, right? Now, let's pretend that your throat is white, like mine is. Mine is open. I have an open throat. And so for me, I pick up other people's energies in the throat and I amplify them for a period of time. And so I've come to know my throat really well over time because I've picked it up and amplified other people's energies so many times. So my throat is more like a satellite dish, which is receiving the energies of other people, and then I amplify it for a period of time while I'm around them. This is one of the beautiful ways that we share energy with each other. We stimulate each other's energy. We help other people feel like, oh, I don't have that always in my chart, right? So my open throat is not always being defined. And so I get to experience that when I'm around other people, and it feels pretty great. So this is going to be true for all the different parts of the chart that you see in that body graph. So here, let's take a look at the centers. So there are 9 centers in the human design system. We have the head, the ajna, the throat, the G center, and the will center, which are what we think of as the 2 parts of the heart. And then the sacral center, which is the most powerful engine in the chart. And we have the spleen center on the right-hand side and the emotional solar plexus on the left-hand side. They're actually kind of close in here in your solar plexus. They're not actually out here the way it kind of looks on the body graph, but they're in here. And then you have the root center, which is at the base. So these are not the same as the chakras. In this picture, you can see the chakras, which are all lined up through that central channel. And these have been studied and practiced and worked with for thousands and thousands of years in the yogic tradition. And I am trained as a radiant body yoga teacher, and we focus on Kundalini yoga, which is one of the things that I teach people in my programs that goes really well with human design, because human design is an energy system, which you can see from these 9 different energy centers. So my yogi friends, just know that they're similar to the chakras, but they are also different. So you're going to want to find out more of the specifics about the centers. We're not going to dive into that level of detail in this particular video. But you're going to want to find out more about them. And first you could find out about the ones that are colored in, because those are the ones that I said, like, you have a consistent way of experiencing them. You already have a relationship with those energies and it's fairly consistent. Whereas the parts that are white, like me with my open throat, I've experienced differently depending on who I'm around. So you'll want to find out about that. And then let's take a look at this next image, because it's the channels that connect the different centers together. And the way that the centers are put into a design in human design is drawn from the Tree of Life, from the Kabbalah. So this is one of the ancient wisdom traditions that it's drawn from. The chakra system is another ancient wisdom tradition that it's drawn from. And so the channels that we have connecting together are related to, but not the same as, the channels that we see in the tree of life. And so it's in this example, right, we're using that same body graph image. And again, we see there's a channel here. That's what is making the head and the ajna colored in human design. When you have a complete channel that's connecting one center to another, that makes those centers defined. And we can see that really strongly here, over here on the left-hand side of the body graph. We've got that emotional solar plexus, which is lit up. It's that brown triangle that's pointing in towards the center. And it's got two different channels going up into the throat. That makes this person a manifesting generator, just so you know. And so this is power going to the throat. But then there's also another channel that's in the G center, connecting that to the sacral center. And then here with the 1-8 is connecting the G center to the throat. So there's a bunch of different channels happening inside of this particular body graph. Not everybody has that many. Okay. Then the channels are based on the gates. Understanding what the numbers are the gates. We're going to walk through that. And understanding what the gates mean and how the two gates talk to each other, right? And that creates a channel, and then that defines the centers. But really, the fundamental basis is the gates. And so we're going to talk about the gates, but the gates are related to where the planets are when you were born and 88 days prior to when you were born. Okay. That's another layer of information. So let's take a look here at the Human Design Mandala, which is beautiful. I love this image. I love it. This is kind of the summary of the whole human design system right here in this image. So let's take a look at the outside rim of the mandala, which is the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. So this is another ancient wisdom tradition that human design draws from, is those 64 gates of the I Ching. And then inside of that are the numbers of the gates. We're going to zero in on that a little bit more in a minute, so just hold on for a sec. But then inside of that are the astrological symbols. And so astrology is the fourth ancient wisdom tradition that the human design system draws from. So you can see the astrological symbols going around here. Because when you're looking at the mandala, the sun and the earth and all the planets really, but we usually, like in my transit reports, if you've seen any of my human design transit reports, what I follow is the journey of the sun and the earth around the human design mandala, and it goes counterclockwise. And so that's how it relates to the astrological symbols, because it's also moving through the signs over the course of the year. We don't talk about the astrological signs so much in human design. The astrologers who also do human design tend to do that. I'm doing it more and more. But generally speaking, in human design, we're not talking as much about the astrological signs, although they can be really helpful for us to understand. We tend to focus more on the planets and on the gates and what that means. So let's take a look at this image that shows us where the planetary symbols are in the gates. So just to review here, we've got the quarters of the year all the way on the outside. Inside of that, we've got the astrological symbols, and then we've got the hexagrams of the I Ching. And just to note here, you'll see different software will print this out a little bit differently. So don't get confused. It's all the same information represented a little bit differently. But if you kind of zero in here, you can see that there's a planetary symbol inside those little pie marks that's happening inside of the mandala. And that is super cool, because that is how definition gets created in your chart, is when the planet is in a gate, okay? And it could be at your birth. It could be 88 days prior, either one. We'll talk about those a little bit more in a sec. But when a planet or more than one planet is there, it creates definition inside the body graph. Okay, so when you have a number that's lit up in one of those shapes, right? Let's again go back here and take a look at this. We've got the 61 is lit up. We've actually got all three of those gates are lit up here in the head center. All three of those gates are lit up, which means you'll be able to find them in the pie graph. Okay. And then you can go find out which planets are lighting them up. So to make this a little bit easier for you, let's zoom in on just a piece of the mandala. So here you can see the gate 37 is being lit up by the sun. So the circle with the dot in it, that's the sun, and also being lit up by Mercury in the gate 37. Next to that, you can see Neptune is lighting up the 63, and Neptune is also lighting up the 22. So the red number is where Neptune was 88 days prior to birth, and the black is where Neptune was at the moment of birth. If you go to the top here, you can see the moon's in the 41, Saturn's in the 60, and Pluto is in the 61 twice. So just to say, these are all the different symbols of the planets and where they're showing up in the gate. Now, let's take what we just learned about the mandala and apply it to what you're more used to seeing in terms of your human design chart. Top of this image, we are looking for the Earth in the gate 5, and the black arrow is pointing to that, right? And so that's on the personality side or the conscious side, sometimes called the mind in different printouts. And that's the black numbers over on the right-hand side of the chart. Then on the other side, we've got the Earth is lighting up the gate 64, and that is called design or unconscious, or it's sometimes called the body, again, depending on your printout. It's all kind of the same idea, right? And those are the red numbers. And so I'm just pulling the one gate out, the Earth gate, and pointing to that here. And you can see it in the mandala. Okay, if you zero in on that, you can see it in the mandala, but then you can also see it in the two columns of numbers on either side, and you can also see it lit up. The 5 is actually on the sacral center down here, so that's where that conscious Earth is, and then the 64 is up here on the head, and it is the beginning of the sensing circuit. And so this is what we're looking at when we look at the mandala, or we're looking at the body graph. And what I want to reiterate is it's always the same information. It's just represented differently so that we can see it differently. Most people haven't seen the mandala before. I always love to show it because it is so beautiful, and it really does show the whole system. And so you can kind of orient yourself here. But then this image that we have is much more what you're likely to see, is the two columns of numbers on either side. The ones on the right are black. The ones on the body on the left are red. And the ones that are black are where all the planets were when you were born. And then red is 88 days prior. So that's how we create the human design system. In the astrology, we just use the black numbers, right? That's what we use. We don't use the red numbers. Although astrology has lots of other things to recommend it, the transits, and it goes way deeper into transits and stuff than we do tend to in human design. So those are all the different pieces of what you're looking at when you look at the image. So just to review, the geometrical shapes, right, are all the centers. The lines that go between them are the channels, and then the numbers are the gates. And then in the lines of numbers, you'll see the planetary symbols in each of those lines of numbers. So let's just go through the ones on the right-hand side here. So we'll see the top number there is the sun symbol. I'm going to give you the planetary symbols also so that you can do this for yourself, or you can find them online anywhere. Okay. But the sun is in the gate 19. Okay. That's what that symbol in the 19 means. Underneath that, the Earth is in the gate 33. Underneath that, the North Node is in the gate 45. The South Node is in the 26. The Moon is in the gate 62. Mercury's in the gate 30. Venus is in the gate 61. Mars is in the gate 24. Jupiter is in the gate 19. Saturn is in the gate 41. Uranus is in the gate 27. Neptune is in the 22. And Pluto is in the 61. Now, what I want to emphasize here is that notice that the sun is in the gate 19, but if you go down that list, you'll see that Jupiter is also in the gate 19. So now the sun is super important because the sun is what you're here to bring out into the world. It's what you shine out into the world, right? But for this particular chart, we also have Jupiter lighting up that gate 19. Wow. Jupiter is like our blessings. It's expansion. So in this particular chart, the gate 19 is super, super important. It's down on the root center and it's being lit up by two of the most auspicious planets that you can have. Pretty cool, right? So what I want to share with you also is this little cheat sheet here about the planets. Now, in astrology, they understand the planets a little bit differently. What I want to do is just offer this cheat sheet to you about what the planets mean in human design. And then if you are into astrology, you can bring in what you know, or you can go and do some research for that if you want to. And you can kind of compare and you can see what's true for me regarding the planets. And if this is all new to you, just try to take it in. Don't try to understand or memorize all of it at once. Just sit, be like, oh, okay, interesting. Each of the planets has a different meaning. And then I'm also going to give you a little cheat sheet for the gates. So you can go through and you can just look, oh, okay, so the gate 19, if we look at that here on this particular cheat sheet, the gate 19 is wanting in traditional human design or attuning in quantum human design. And so you can kind of see, what does this mean for me? What does it mean to be attuning to a certain kind of energy? How do I, with my Jupiter and my Sun, how do I attune to what's happening? So if you want to, my recommendation, if you want a book to check out, for years, I used this one, Understanding Human Design, still a really valuable resource, but it's also been updated in the Encyclopedia of Quantum Human Design, which was done by my mentor, Karen Curry Parker. And so if you're just going to get one human design book, this would be the one that I would recommend. There's not super long explanations about these things. But it does give you kind of the core understanding that you need to begin working with it. Over time, you'll come to understand these things much better. But don't worry about not knowing yet for yourself, because this is a grand adventure that you get to experience over the course of your life. So give yourself enough time to learn this. So I want to give you an exercise that'll help you really kind of focus your attention now. And I hope is going to help you to step out of any overwhelm that you have. Because a lot of times when I talk to people and they're first learning human design, they're like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. There's so much to learn. I just want to say, okay, let's just decide, you and me here, pinky swear, not to get overwhelmed. Okay, if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, just forgive yourself, breathe a little bit, put your hands on your heart and say, it's okay, sweetie, we're going to step out of overwhelm right now. Let's just see how Maggie's going to help us do that. So my invitation for you, so here's my human design chart, okay, is to pick one of your defined centers. Okay, this is actually an exercise that we did in the Sovereign Sisterhood recently. So just know that you're following along with people in this beautiful sisterhood that we're co-creating. So I picked the G center. Okay, so the G center is right here. It's colored in on my chart. It's yellow in my chart. So pick one of your defined centers, and then pick one of the gates that's colored in on your whatever center it is that you're choosing. For me, I chose the gate of self-love, the 10, because the gate of self-love, always a challenge, right? Self-love, I'm still working on it. And so you can pick a gate on one of your defined centers, okay, and then look to see which planet is lighting that up. So for me, let me find it here. It's the gate 10 is being lit up by Saturn. Okay, so here's the symbol for Saturn, and here's the gate 10. And so for me, I'm like, okay, so Saturn is the great teacher. Saturn is a wonderful support for us, an ally for us in terms of building our discipline, our devotion. to whatever it is that we want to devote ourselves to. And Saturn tells us what we need to devote ourselves to. And so Saturn has been telling me throughout the course of my life that I need to develop my devotion to my self-love. Okay, that's what Saturn's saying. Saturn is like, I'm the great teacher. I'm here to help you to create discipline for yourself. Discipline in a positive sense, not like punishment. Discipline like devotion. I'm here to help you do that. And I'm going to say every day for you, how's your self-love? How's your self-love? How's your self-love? What can you do to grow your self-love today? So that's the kind of lesson that Saturn gives us. And I know it's on my heart. And the G center is the center for love and lovability, identity, and direction in life. So I really want this center to be well functioning. And in order to do that, my self-love needs to be growing on a regular basis. So for me, when I look at these, I go, okay, I'm going to focus on this one G center. I'm going to focus on this one gate. It's over here, the 10. And I'm going to focus on Saturn shining a light into the gate 10. And Saturn is like, how's your self-love, Maggie? Are you focusing on that? Are you growing it day to day? So my invitation to you is to go ahead and pick your chart, pick up your chart, choose a center, choose a gate, find out which planet is lighting it up. So you'll find this over here. You can use all the cheat sheets that I gave you and just focus on that for like the next week. Just that. So I'm just going to focus on Saturn lighting up the gate of self-love for me, which is going to help me to grow positive energy around my identity and my direction in life, right? It's going to help me uplift my sense of love and lovability in general. So that's what I'm going to be working on. How about you? What are you going to work on? I would love to hear from you in the comments about how this landed for you, if this helped you to understand what you're looking at when you're looking at your chart, if it helped you to understand a little bit about where the system came from, and then also what are you going to work on for this next week? Let's learn from each other. Let's support each other. Go ahead and put that in the comments below. And do make sure to take a look for the Get Started with Human Design. If you liked the images that I presented to you here, not 100% of them, but a bunch of them are in that ebook. And so you can get that and it'll walk you through your chart so that you can start to understand your human design. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.